In exercise 10-12, we have a company that has two production departments, fabricating and assembly. At a department manager's meeting, the controller uses flexible budget graphs to explain total budget costs. Separate graphs based on direct labor are used for each department. The graphs show the following. At 0 direct labor hours, the total budgeted cost line and the fixed cost line intersect the vertical axis at 50,000 in the fabricating department and 40,000 in the assembling department. At normal capacity of 50,000 direct labor hours, the line drawn from the total budgeted cost intersect the vertical axis at 150,000 in the fabricating department and 120 in the assembling department. State the total budgeted cost formula for each department, and then they've asked us to compute the cost assuming the hours are 53 and 47,000 hours in each of these departments. And they've asked us to prepare a graph. Now on Volley Plus, you're not going to do the graph, but for the rest of it, but I will show you a graph as well over here. So let's start with what we have over here. In part 1, they're telling you over here that if direct labor hours is 0, okay, we still have a cost of $50,000 for the fabricating department and 40,000 for the assembling department. When the hours are 50,000, the cost over here is 150,000 and here it is 120. So it's fairly obvious to say that these costs, the 50 and 40, are the fixed cost. Regardless of what the labor hours are, that cost is being incurred. So I'm going to separate out the numbers. And I'm going to say of 150, if 50 is fixed, 100 is variable. Of 120, 40 is fixed, 80 is variable for the second department. That's a variable cost only. So the rate, the variable cost rate per direct labor hour is 100,000 divided by 50,000 hours. And here it's going to be 80,000 divided by 50,000 hours. Okay, so we get the $2 and 1.6 per hour. So for the fabricating department, if I had to write this as a formula, and think back about in your algebra class, whether it was in middle school, high school, college algebra, wherever you learned this, the formula is y equals a plus bx or xp, however you want to phrase this. Y is the total cost, A is the fixed cost, B is the direct labor hours worked, and this multiplier is 2, and that's the rate that we have over here. Okay, so now that I know this formula, in part B they've asked you if the hours are 53,000 hours, what would the cost be? Okay, so I'm going to write that down over here and show you what it would be. So total cost equals 50,000 as a fixed cost plus 2 times 53,000 hours. That'll give me a total of 156 is going to be the rate. That's going to be the cost for the fabricating department. For the assembling department, let's do the same in terms of a formula. The fixed cost is 40,000. The variable cost, the multiplier is 1.6. So the formula is going to be total cost equals fixed cost plus 1.6 of the direct labor hours worked. If the hours worked is 47,000, plug the numbers into the formula, and what do we get? The cost is going to be 115,200. Okay. Now, they've told us in this next part to do this in increments of $10,000. Okay, assuming the maximum range is 100,000 hours. So I'm going to go down over here and do increments of 10,000. So this is 0 I have for the, so that I can show you the fixed cost in the graph. I have 50,000 as the starting point in terms of I will work at least 50,000 hours, and then it goes in increments of 10, and I may work a maximum of 100,000 hours. Okay, so the next thing is what is going to be the cost over here. So at 50,000, at 0, that is if no labor hours are worked at all, I still incur the fixed cost. The fixed cost is 50,000 over here and 40,000 over here. What will it be over here? If 50,000 hours are worked, the hourly rate is 2. 2 times 50 is 100 plus this 50,000. That's not going away. So it's going to be 150,000. What will it be over here? We said it was 1.6. So 50,000 times 1.6 plus 40, you will get your 120. I can copy down the formula over here and come up with this information over here. Okay. Now that I have this, I'm going to expand my Excel spreadsheet so I can show you what I have set up over here. Okay. In Excel, it is really easy to set up graphs. Now in the problem they told you for presentation purposes they do separate graphs for the two departments. I've done it together. You can do it individually or you can do it together. So all I had to do was highlight this portion over here, and you can go to insert, and you can go to graphs, and you can choose, you can go along that line. There are several different ways in which you can do it. So what I did was I highlighted the relevant section I wanted. I clicked insert, and then I clicked on recommended graph, and I chose the line graph. And you will see in the legend, the blue color line is the fabricating department. The orange color line is the assembly department. In my x-axis over here, the horizontal axis, I have the hours. In my y-axis, I have the dollar amount. Now the reason it starts over here and not down over here at 0, 0 is because of that fixed cost. So the fixed cost for the assembly department is 40,000. For the fabricating departments is 50,000. That's the starting point. That's the minimum cost that's going to be incurred even if no work is done. And then it goes up, and you will see over here how it is going up. So between 40 and 60 is 50,000. And you can bring your cursor over here and you can see where you are at each of these points, what the numbers are. So what they started out by telling you was all you were given was this graph, and you had to work back to find out all these other numbers. It's extremely easy. If the line is starting over here, that is the fixed cost. Okay, so this is the fixed cost where you're seeing over here. If it was 0, 0, it means fixed cost is 0 if no work is done. And that's not going to happen. Fixed cost is incurred no matter what. Okay, so this is a graphical presentation of all the work we have done over here. So typically when you're talking to management, if you really want to impress them, you want to give them tables and graphs. But in both cases, you want to be able to explain what you're doing. And the more explanation you have over here in terms of legends, etc., the easier it is. And it's probably really good because they will then ask you leading questions, which will help you explain a little more. Otherwise, you can do death by presentation, giving lots and lots of information and lots of graphs and numbers, and no one will understand anything. But visually, as you can tell, this does make a lot of sense.